Corey. What's going on, everyone? Welcome in, welcome in. Random, how's it going? What's going on, everyone? I'll take a look at some quick charts for you guys. I know that class is going to be starting here just shortly with Sig and Dapper, so um, hopefully to look at some of the charts that you guys are maybe just holding positions on, or maybe you're looking to enter positions. Tomorrow, of course, is OPEX. I'm sure you heard Dapper pretty much repeat that on live. So if you're holding an overnight position, I hope it's something very light because you are in for a wild ride tomorrow. Because usually OPEX day is going to be some drastic movement. Um, Random, I literally have been working on that thing all day in that. It's insanely crazy, by the way. But yeah, Chris, I was pretty quiet today working on some other stuff on the back end, pretty much. So that's why I was pretty much working on some other things. And then today was just pretty much a very strong trend day. That's really what we had. So if you were pretty much following the trend, we saw everything going up. I know that it started off pretty much being a box. This morning, they literally just put us in a range in which that was basically your way of your consolidation, your accumulation, basically, that we had this morning. And we pretty much expected a dip this morning. If you heard me on live yesterday here, I pretty much mentioned the fact that I was hoping to get a dip by entry on SPY, hopefully around that 432 mark. I think we got close enough if I pretty much dial in probably about the 1 hour or so into this morning here that we got. Today being the 17th, I think the lowest that we probably got here was this about 433 half was the lowest that we got. So I didn't even get 432. But I did start to scale in, so I got a little bit of the entire ride here up this morning. So I didn't hold all day on some spy calls, but I did end up scalping. But I was a little bit focused on some other things on the other end here. All right. But other than that, pretty much if you actually followed Dapper, and I heard Tatum also talking for most of the day here, definitely a strong trend day. Tesla monster move, and I think that it was Frank that actually called out on live for us that inverted head and shoulders on Tesla. So I did hear that as well. I believe at the same time as well, Amazon had that same look as well on its intraday chart, and that actually ended up running insanely crazy. I didn't even look to see how much that was actually up. It ran 82, almost $83 today. So insanely crazy day for Amazon and Tesla both. And then of course I've been trying to keep an eye on Shop. I actually caught this one a little bit late yet again, but that one is always a sleeper for me. I don't know why. I actually do need to pretty much pay more attention to it. But usually, of course, knowing the fact that Amazon was going to have such strength, I should have taken a look at Shopify. All right. But other than that, let's get right into some of the charts that you guys want to look at because I know that class is going to be starting just momentarily. Real quick before I just pretty much get into those charts, just giving you my quick update as to what I said pretty much yesterday. Watching that 440 level, we literally smacked our head right into that resistance. I do expect yet another pullback tomorrow. How drastic of a pullback that's going to be is still very much a very big question. I think we can see 437 if we really start to extend, and obviously OPEX being that it's going to be a wild day and some drastic price action, we could stretch down back towards 434 before we make our final push, which I think is still going to be 446. And that may not end up being tomorrow. That's going to be towards next week, maybe towards the middle of the week. That will likely see that 446 mark. So that's still pretty much what my projections are, what I'm pretty much still eyeballing right now. But of course, just playing it day by day, level by level for the most part. All right. Let me dive into some of the charts that you guys wanted me to look at real quick. Randy, you said to look at Twilio. This is one. This is one I have not looked at in a very long time. Twilio has really been under my radar here. Have not looked at that ticker in quite some time. I think since their earnings, maybe, if that's the case. But pretty much looking at the 4 hour here, probably just let me see if I take the peep at the daily. Yeah, this thing has died a lot. Damn. All right, so let's take a peek back at that 4 hour. Obviously, we see we pretty much already broken that downtrend resistance. That's pretty much something that we can pretty much already eyeball. And that was convincingly because obviously you see that we ended up gapping over that downtrend resistance. So that was a beautiful move that we ended up getting there. Now, looking at some of the actual resistance points that you're going to be looking at, Randy, here, your next move that you want to see is you want to end up getting over this 18-day moving average, which is sitting within just a few cents at 150.63. That's your 18-day moving average that you pretty much want to get over. As you see, you pretty much tried to make a push towards it, but you rejected as high as 151.51 here. So you weren't able, you wicked over it, but you weren't able to pretty much build a base over it. That's what you're going to want to see is building a base over that level. And then you'll be able to pretty much uh, see a nice continuation. Your resistance points that you're watching is that 152.78 mark. So 152.78 is the other mark that you're watching. That's one of your pivot points. And above that, then you can see the starts to stretch in which you can go as high as 160.93 will be where you're pretty much sitting. Now, zones in which I pretty much ideally see here, looking at where you have more so a potential supply zone. This is that zone in which I'm particularly watching, as in which you are pretty much going to see a lot of sellers try to step in here in which that's pretty much sitting right between that 157 up towards that 160 mark. So that pretty much coincides with your second pivot point of your resistance at that 160.93. You're going to see some heavy sellers start to step in there to pretty much draw price right back down, in which you'll likely end up retesting back at 147. So I would expect this to make a push towards that 160. Then you're going to end up retracing back down towards 147, whether that's due to market volatility or not. But that's what I would expect is retracement back towards 147. That'll be the low that you pretty much set back from February 24th on that retracement. And then you'll see the continuation right back to the upside. In which case, that may end up playing out to be somewhat of an inverted head and shoulders. Also, if you look at it, you have this left shoulder. You're going to be end up making your head here as you pretty much bang your head right at that 160 mark at the end of the supply, and then you'll pull back to that 147 and hopefully curl back up to make an inverted head and shoulders. That's what I'm particularly looking to see how that plays out. All right. Let's see the other one. Someone mentioned to look at Amazon. I'll take a peep at it. What's going on, Tolkis? Nice to see you joining. Let's see if I take a look at the daily on this one. I know that I've been pretty much looking at Amazon, not just recently, more so like today, but I know that I looked at it, I believe yesterday, someone had me look at it on live, if I'm not mistaken. But also, again, another one broke the downtrend resistance. You're coming into a little bit of a supply zone right here. That's pretty much right at this 3205 mark, right up to here, up towards 3242 is what you're looking at in terms of your supply. So I did see also 3200 calls going out for towards tomorrow. I do think it's a little bit of a stretch considering a lot of names pretty much ran right into resistance into the close as SPY literally just smacked its head right on for 441. So I do expect this to go towards that 3200 level into the supply. I just don't believe that's going to be necessarily tomorrow. That's my only caution about it. So look to see if you get a continuation on it. I would hope that it doesn't end up gapping up if you're in a position. Or you, I mean, what I mean is you're looking to enter a position on this one for calls. But if you are in calls right now, that's my only trepidation is that we pretty much smacked right into a lot of resistance points right here, in which your resistance is right around. I would say if we get any kind of slight gap up, 3163 is that spot that you're looking at to hopefully get that gap up tomorrow. And I would be a little bit cautious in trying to secure your profits, is what I would say. As I've pretty much been repeatedly say, a lot of names have actually hit resistance going into the close here today. So that's just something you want to keep in mind. Also, the other factor is that you also do have the 1 month high that's pretty much right about here. I believe we wicked right into it. That 149.97 is your 1 month high that you're currently sitting at. Some other resistance point that you're watching is pretty much right along inside of this zone right here. Is that 3216.96. That's one of your pivot levels that you're watching here. So that pretty much starts my supply zone that I'm watching. And then also the 13-week high is where that's going to be getting nutty probably next week more so. Is that your 13-week high? That's the 34.58. Those are the two major levels that stand out to me in terms of this. But just resistance points, I think, is that 3216 mark up towards this upper level of the supply zone is that 3243. That's what I would particularly be watching. All right. Other than that, let's see if there's other names that someone mentioned. I haven't exactly looked at shop. I'll take a look at shop. I know that you also mentioned that, VJ. Let's see. Let's see. What are we looking at with shop? Actually, this is what I remember. I was looking at this the last time I take the peep at shop. That gap fill is what actually had my attention. I know that it was actually also yesterday that everyone was literally hitting 700 calls, and I'm like, why the hell is everyone hitting 700 calls so far out of the money? That was insanely crazy. Why you would hit that many, that far out of the money, basically. So that caught me a little bit by surprise. I know that the name has been quite oversold. You obviously see this nice little double bottom action here at the bottom. If I pretty much just draw a trend line, it was just a pretty picture perfect double bottom action. So we see how it's been so explosive. The other concern here is that you do have a small, tiny little gap fill here once we do see the retracement back to the downside here. So just be cautious about that. That gap fill will likely end up being filled once we start to see a major pullback and volatility kick back in. So that's just something you want to be aware of. Other than that, just some key levels so I can point out to you that you want to pay attention to on shop here. Currently sitting at that 657 level. You do have a pivot point that's literally just above us here shortly. Is 661.27. That's one of your major pivot points that you're watching. Above that, then you're looking towards that 698 mark. 698.69 is that next level that you're pretty much watching. And above that, this is where you're looking. This is where I pretty much identified that why they were hitting so far the money in terms of this is that you're going to hit your 1 month high at 711.17. So that's another key level that you're pretty much watching here that pretty much coincides with your recent high that you put in here back from the beginning of March here. So that would also be literally just smacking your head right onto that previous high, which is pretty much currently sitting as our 1 month high right now. So that 711.17 mark, I think that's what a lot of the call buying through the tape is pretty much targeting, is that 1 month high. And then above that, if you do end up stretching, which will, I would pretty much assume this is going to be towards next week, we'll be stretching towards the 40-day moving average at that 752.40 level, which will be targeting more so aiming towards that gap fill here above. All right. So that's what I would be looking at for that one. Other than that, someone made chants about Home Depot. I haven't looked at Home Depot in a while either. Ooh, this is actually a pretty juicy one. I will say that's a nice actual catch on Home Depot. Just because of the fact that you actually have a well-defined resistance point on this one, and you smacked your head right into this gap fill. That's a nice catch. This is definitely one that you want to pay attention to. Considering the fact that I know the Dow also had quite a bit of strength here today, that's something that you definitely want to take a peep at and keep pretty much on your watch list for that matter. Some key resistance points and levels that you want to pretty much take note of. Your pivot point resistance is right above you here right now, 339.42. Above that, you're going to smack your head at this 341.27 level, which is your 40-day moving average within this gap fill here. And above that 341.27, I can see this stretch towards 344.88 at your next pivot point. And ultimately, my third PT here would be your 1 month high sitting at that 350.60 mark, in which you will pretty much eclipse this entire gap fill. And that'll be where you end up trying to retest, which was basically your prior support before you had this basic drop down. You had that little distribution action before you had the meltdown. So that 350.60 will be my ultimate target on this pretty much uptrend that we're going on. And then of course that'll be completing that gap fill within that PT. So that's what I would pretty much target off of that. All right. I'm gonna take a look at two more tickers here because I know that class is gonna be starting. So I'm sorry I won't be able to get to all of them. I'll take a look at the ones that pretty much you guys mentioned as you came in here. Oxy is another one here. Pretty much taking a look off of this bull flag action here. You have I would say this looks more so like a little bit of a ascending triangle price action here going on. So I do like this one in particular. You have a nice little ascending triangle going on there with Oxy. So I do like this one in particular. I would stay long with this one. Oxy, some key levels that you're watching here is breaking over that 58.20 mark. That's going to be key to break over. And then what I see that you pretty much have been bumping your head on, and which why we haven't been able to break out of this ascending triangle yet, is that you're literally right near your 52-week high at the 59.60 mark. And that's your biggest level that you're watching for. So ideally, I wouldn't say to enter here just yet. For if you don't have a position on Oxy, I would wait to see if you end up breaking that 52-week high at the 59.60 mark. And if you end up breaking that level, then we can set our eyes on our next resistance point of 61.72. And above that, then we can see this really start to stretch. And I think your next PT is towards 69.73. So, but again, I would wait to see the 52-week high break on this before I enter any kind of position on this one. All right. Any quad witching plays? Honestly, to give you my gut feeling right now, and this is why you also heard Dapper on live as well, saying that he had feelings about swinging Nvidia or also about swinging. I believe he was looking at Chinese names. It's very much a wild card as far as whether we're gonna really extend this rally here that we had today and continue to push and gap up overnight, or do we really see a pullback? What I'll try to do is I will try to actually drop some names that I'm watching and some strikes that I'm watching in terms of tomorrow once I see the morning price action and how overnight goes. I know that US is also having some discussions with China that's going on as well, so that's something to keep an eye on for the broader market as well. But tomorrow morning, once I see how the market pretty much develops, then I'll be able to pretty much call out maybe a lotto or so that I'm pretty much paying attention to. But right now, I did stay cash over tonight. I don't want to be caught in the whole volatility at OPEX, whether that's to the upside or the downside. All right. Uh, so I am gonna go ahead and conclude here. I know that Dapper and Sig are gonna start their class right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here, guys. Tomorrow's Friday. It's OPEX. Keep it light. Do not get caught on the wrong side. I know that today was very much a very strong trend day, but tomorrow I would just say to keep your positions more lighter than usual. All right, that's my best advice I can give you tonight, just because of the fact that it's OPEX and it's volatility. So that's pretty much the two key words that involves keeping your positions lighter than you normally would. I know that it's 0 days, so I don't mind the fact about playing 0 days on OPEX. Of course, that's where the more wild the price action, the more bigger the swing is. Maybe more so in your favor, but just keep aware that you want to keep your position size small, especially those of you that don't want to risk too much. All right. But appreciate you guys joining. Let's tune into the Sig and Dapper's class real quick, and let's see what they have to say about market volatility. As I pretty much mentioned that going into OPEX tomorrow, so I think that's going to be a good class to listen into, especially those of you that are pretty much unfamiliar with how much volatility impacts the markets. All right, so I'll see you guys. But other than that, I'm signing off. Later, guys.